when factories start to think. I want to take you back into the future, 15th century. Gutenberg, a German blacksmith inventor, he invented the first printing press. And that was the first time in the history of mankind we could print books in a mass scale and send it across the globe, right? And that kicked off the IT revolution, which is paying for our roti, kapda, makan. So we should be grateful to him. And let me bring us back to now. Right now, we are sitting with huge amounts of data, huge. And this is accessible literally at the tip of our fingers on our mobile phones. With ChatGPT, Google, you have access to domain experts in any field. And all of this instantaneously. We are absolutely in an incredible intersection of data and more data, compute power and more compute power. We had a lot of data even a few years ago when we were selling data lakes, data warehouses, but we didn't have the compute power. But with the GPUs and the CPUs and the gigafactories, this is the best moment that technocrats like us can actually live. And we are using this in our day-to-day life with ChatGPT, with Google, etc. Unfortunately, that's not the case in the factories, in the manufacturing plants, in the large oil and gas companies, or metals, CPG. Yes, they do have some great systems, right? They have the SAPs, they have historians, Aviva, Salesforce. You name the best breed software, many of the large companies, they do have it. But the data is trapped in silos. When a service engineer has a compressor that is broken or its health is not at the optimal level and it's overheating, let's say. If he has to figure out what's the root cause for this problem, he has to go to 10 different systems. Yes, these are best breed systems, but the data that he needs on what is that work order in terms of maintenance that was done in the last 3 weeks, he has to go probably to an SAP system. What is the temperature, pressure, vibration, all the fancy IoT sensors on the pump are feeding a large amount of data every second, and that's being stored in systems. But he needs to go to that system to access that information. Maybe a manual or a PDF that talks about how to fix that particular machine. He needs to go to probably a SharePoint folder. So, there are so many different systems where he needs to go to, best breed systems, mind you, and has to extract those and then do his analysis. And it takes a lot of time to do that. In some cases, it can take multiple weeks, and this compressor probably is in a very critical path within the system. And what this does is the plant has to be shut down, or that particular process cannot be run at an optimal throughput, and this costs large asset companies millions of dollars, millions of rupees, multi-crore. So it becomes very, very important to bring that ChatGPT experience, the Google experience that we have in our day-to-day lives, to the industry. And that is the mission Cognite, the company I'm from, we are working on and have made it a reality already. This is a possibility with Cognite, right? Imagine a waste treatment plant with some hazardous liquids that are emanating but have to be tested every shift. Today, in many of these large waste treatment plants, there's actually a human with all the PPEs who goes in and touches, of course, with gloves and PPE, but gets those samples and takes it for testing. That has been, in some of our customers, replaced with robots, which can do that. metals companies, steel factories working in very hazardous conditions, humanoids, robots, cobots. And imagine the other scenario that I talked about where a compressor is down, where the person had to go to 10 different systems and extract data. How would it look if he just had to point his iPhone at that machine and all the data that he needs relevant to that particular asset just pops up like it does in Google. Maybe after this event, with your colleagues, you may want to go for a quick snack. You type in Rameshwaram Cafe. What does Google do? Not only does it give you where is Rameshwaram Cafe from this venue, it's quite close by, so you should try it. The ghee-soaked idlis. So it tells you where is it, how soon can you get there, when you get there, how busy is it going to be at that point in time, how expensive is it, and then after you have your ghee-soaked idli, maybe you can have a pan. So it also tells you what you can do right after you have your dinner. But all you ask Google is, where is Rameshwaram Cafe? Tell me Rameshwaram Cafe near me or restaurants near me. So what Google did was to contextualize the data and provide it to you so that you can make a relevant decision. And that's exactly what we have done for the factories, where you point your iPhone as a service engineer at a machine, at a line, production line, and all the relevant information about that particular asset pops up so that you can make meaningful decisions, let's say when the line is down or it's not running at its optimal throughput or there's a safety incident, etc. And why is that important, or why is it so difficult to do, and why is that only Cognite is able to do today, right? So if you take, I talked about some of this, right? There's a humongous amount of data that's sitting in all these best-breed systems. And in this example, for example, if you look at the visual data, that's the pump. It's called PT tank A1233. But an SAP system might call it asset A, tank A. A historian system like Aviva might call it something else. Your SharePoint folder, the PDF files, the piping and instrumentation diagrams will have a different name to it, right? So there is no one primary key that links all of this together. That's what Cognite does, where we create a knowledge graph linking all of this so that when you point your iPhone at that asset, it is able to give you all the information that you would need about that asset in one place without having to go to multiple systems. And it has that intelligence, as you can see, that even though there is no one primary key, the machine learning algorithms are smart to know that it's the same asset that is being called in multiple systems as multiple things. And what would take probably a few weeks to root cause will take probably a few minutes or a few hours, right? And that's a lot of value that goes into the pockets of, and we don't stop there. Our mission is to give that ChatGPT experience, right? And the service engineer does not have to actually go and even look at that pop-up that comes when he shoots the picture of the asset. He can actually start talking to the asset and the data through a chat interface. So, and where we are getting to, and we have done that in a few use cases, is I know what is the problem. I have all the data related to the problem, so I can actually predict when a system is going to go down. Since I also have all the access to the data, I also know how I can potentially resolve these issues. Since I know the problem, I know how to resolve it, I better well go and resolve it. And that's what we call as thinking factories, factories that know the problem, they know the answer, and through robots and automation, they resolve the problem. And they come to you, the factories, only when there's a need for human intelligence. And once you interfere at that point and resolve it, it learns from you. And the next time the same problem occurs, it's not going to ask you because it knows how to solve it. It learned from you. And why can't you do this with the current ChatGPT, right? And one of our customers, many companies are trying to do it themselves today, where since all of us have access to all the different LLMs, and this is what happened, very recent report of a customer who purchased Cognite. So they had to do in factories something called an isolation planning. So going back to that simple example I gave, there's a pump that is failed or going to fail, and you want to bypass or isolate that pump and continue the rest of the plant. They were planning for that isolation, and they asked the app that they had built using ChatGPT with some of their information that they had uploaded, created a RAG model, etc. They asked it, hey, is this upstream valve 8943 closed or open? It came back and said, yeah, the valve was closed. They were still in a testing phase, so they sent someone to that location to see, is that valve closed, really? But it was open. And they were shocked. They were still in a prototype phase, so it was still okay. There was no damage. And why did the ChatGPT come back and say it was open? Because it works on probability. When it was trained, most valves were closed. So it guessed that the valve was closed. So you cannot operate with a 99% confidence in a large factory. You need to be 100% sure. There is zero scope for hallucination. And that is where the knowledge graph that I talked about helps. A knowledge graph of the pump that we talked about. It knows in real time that the valve is open. So coming back to my thing, what they did after they implemented Cognite is to ask the same question, same scenario. That was their key litmus test use case, and they replicated the same scenario and asked Cognite, is the valve open or closed? It came back saying the valve is open as of time 5:22 p.m. and the source of this information is the sensor number so and so from the source system, Aviva, time series information, whatever it is, right? So it was able to firstly know in real time that the valve is open and also give you reference of how do I know it. So now this 100%, and that was a great success, and this is a major chemical manufacturer in the US, and they rolled this out across 52 plants, and many of these plants, their vision with Cognite is to make these dark factories where there are no humans, it's completely automated, and it's Cognite that's running these factories. So with that, I want to wrap up. Thank you very much. I wanted to keep it short. Hopefully this was interesting. Any questions you have, I can take them.